Hello again, my good people. Right, we can kick off today's video by wishing me a happy birthday. I had my 74th just a couple of days ago. Got lots of good gear, which I'll be turning into a video very shortly. Had a big party, all the celebrities, local celebrities. No, actually I didn't. I'm lying. It was just had an Indian takeaway for me, my wife and daughter. But had a good time nevertheless. Right, now on to today's video. I think I said last time there wouldn't be any more science fiction pickups of the vintage stuff. Well, actually turns out that the charity shop that I get them from, and this is, as you probably gathered, this is my current sort of passion, if you like, because I used to collect these all donkeys years ago and got rid of a load about 40 years ago, and I'm just trying to get a few back, basically. But it turns out that the charity shop I get these from, they have quite a large selection in their basement where they keep all the books, and they actually let me go down. They shouldn't have done, but because I'm a regular customer, they let me pop down and have a look, and I've picked out, most of the ones that I would want, and I'm going to pick those up week by week. So there'll be videos for 2 or 3 weeks yet, I would imagine. That's that. Now before we kick off today's video, it just occurs to me that there might be a few people who watch these particular vids that are not really into science fiction, who don't know what science fiction is all about, really. So I thought I would just give you a very quick potted history of science fiction, which might give you a better idea. Now, science fiction sort of like began as a popular genre, if you like, back in Victorian times, actually. In the late 1800s and the 19th century, H.G. Wells and Jules Verne were a couple of authors who did books on science fiction themes. One of the earliest and most popular of these being The War of the Worlds. And there was a few books written in the late 1800s, and then it kind of died down, really. You had I'm just using these fridge magnets to illustrate a bit better. You had magazines sort of from the 1920s, I think these were, that showed the sort of the technology of the time. They tried to envisage how it would look in the future. So that's the sort of thing that was knocking about. But then in the 1920s, I think it was 1926, amazing stories came out, and I think the stories, the science fiction stories that we know now as science fiction, were called scientifiction at the time. Didn't become science fiction until a bit later on, but basically that was the kind of stuff, sort of aliens and alien invasions and us going to alien planets. And that's when sort of like the modern era kicked off. And then we had the 1950s, there was an explosion again with astounding stories. Now, astounding stories tended to do more sort of like hard science fiction, if you like, nuts and bolts stuff, sort of proper science, if you like, astounding stories. And then on the other end of the scale, you had stuff like this, it's like space heroes rescuing scantily clad women, as you can see from the cover there, and you had all this space opera, as they called it. And science fiction became very popular during this period. And then in the 60s, Penguin books started to do a lot of science fiction stuff. This one here is from the 60s, and authors like, of course, War of the Worlds is about alien invasion. The Triffids was a similar theme by John Wyndham. A lot of his books were available in the 60s. In fact, I mean, H.G. Wells, John Wyndham, and a couple of other authors, Ray Bradbury, Fred Hoyle, people like this. It wasn't quite science fiction as we know it now. It was a bit more muted, but it was recognisable as science fiction. And then you had, this is another book from the 60s, Don't It Rain Forever, Ray Bradbury. This is a short story book. And it's quite an easy read. And then we move on into the 70s, and there again, there was a lot of science fiction being published. Ace Books in America were publishing a lot of books like that. I mean, there was a lot of things going on in America, but in Britain we had our own version of science fiction, which was called. It was led by a magazine edited by Michael Moorcock, and it was kind of a more hard-edged, more literate science fiction, if you like, and a lot of the English writers like Brian Aldiss and people like this, J.G. Ballard, came to the fore. This was New Worlds magazine, which had been a magazine but turned into a paperback, and we kind of became the English authors became the poster boys for this new breed of science fiction, if you like. And then 70s, very popular time, and then the 80s, kind of mid-80s science fiction had kind of not died off, but it was less popular in favour of science fantasy, which now in the shape of Game of Thrones, The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, and stuff like this. And then there was this big explosion of science fantasy hit the bookshelves, and kind of science fiction disappeared to all intents and purposes. So that's a brief history of where sort of science fiction has been in history. If any of you new to science fiction are interested in getting into it, I've got a couple of recommendations for you, and these are the books that I've showed you before. War of the Worlds is a good intro. It's fairly sort of like standard science fiction. It's not written the same as science fiction is written these days, but it's an easy read. And of course, this one I showed you, Day of the Triffids. I mean, this was all the stuff I read when I was a kid, and I was getting interested in science fiction. And then if you can find this, or anything by Ray Bradbury, really, it's a good introduction to science fiction. And then for any of you who are sort of like into science fiction but not totally into it, like people like me, who are obsessed with it, I've got a couple of recommendations. This has just become a new film, popular film. I would recommend Dune. I mean, even people new to science fiction, once they've read a few, could probably do with reading this, because it's an excellent book. And then you've got people like Arthur Clarke, of 2001 fame. This is a good recommendation for you. Rendezvous with Rama. Craft appears in the solar system, and we send people out to investigate it. And then I've got two, to my eternal shame, that I've just read. I've had these books for 40 odd years. This one is The Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. Although it is science fiction, it's set in far in the future. It's more of a science fantasy type of thing, but it's an amazing book. The way it's written, I really enjoyed it. I'm surprised I never read it before, and then I just finished reading this one. Alfred Bester, I can recommend this to you all. Stars My Destination. I mean, this was written 70 years ago, 1953, I believe, and the ideas and the stuff in this is just unreal. It's a good sort of like space romp. I mean, a lot of people might call it space opera, but it isn't. Far from it. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend those books to some of you in various states of interest in science fiction. So anyway, that's that. So now we'll get on to the actual books that I picked up. Right, I remember I had this one. Strangely enough, this book is set near me geographically. I live in Tyne and Wear, Sunderland, Newcastle area, and this is actually set in Teesside, which is Middlesbrough area, which is, about 20 miles down the road. And yeah, I remember having this one way back in the day. It's a volume one of a trilogy, and it is the other two are Volte-Face and Multi-Face, and this is 1977 vintage. So that was one nice one I picked up there. Edmund Cooper, I think I had this one back in the day as well. 10th Planet, another science fiction novel. This one was this was a second edition, 1978, from Coronet Books. And then, yes, I definitely had this one in my collection before I sold a lot. Prosthetic Plus by Piers Anthony. This is an American Berkeley edition. I believe it's the first paperback. I'll just check the indicia page. Yeah, this is 1973, first paperback. Well, it says at the bottom there, first time in paperback, so that's fairly... Right, now this is a more recent book. This one, it's a Robert Heinlein book that I've actually heard of. Actually, I mean, I've heard of most of Heinlein's books, but this one is a new one to me. It's a very thick tome, and I think this one's probably in the 1980s. I'll just first New English Library paperback, so it's the first British paperback, 1983. So this is getting towards when science fiction sort of like stopped being as popular as it used to be. Then we have these large format Ian Banks books. This one's Against the Dark Background. These are not vintage SF. These, Ian Banks has done quite a lot of contemporary science fiction, and this one is dated, it's 1995, so getting on for 20 years old, but not exactly vintage. It's one of a series, I think, that he did. This is a companion volume to Space Opera that I showed you last time by Brian Aldiss. It reprints a lot of stories from the 50s and 60s, I believe. Yeah, 50s, 40s. So these would have been originally in the pulp magazines, and this is the first British paperback from 1974. That's another one I seem to remember having back in the day, as opposed to this one, which is Ben Bova. I had a few of his books, but I never had this one. And again, I believe this is a more modern printing. Where are we? Yep, 1984, not that modern, but it's in lovely shape. And I told you before, the shop where I buy these, they're all £2, so I don't mind paying that for vintage stuff. Or next to vintage, now this is the kind of stuff I love picking up, because this is the sort of stuff I used to buy and read back in the 60s, 70s. I used to take them out in my lunch break, because with short stories, you can kind of fit a short story in during a lunch break, whereas a novel, you really need more time at it, and I found short stories were more digestible, if you're pardon the pun, in lunch hours at work. So that's the Best of Sci-Fi 4. That's an American edition, American book, but it's actually an English edition. Mayflower Dell, yeah. But it had a different title in America. And this one should be vintage, 1960 odd, I would guess, from having it and reading it. Am I right? Yeah, that's a second printing from 1967. Okay, and then another one I remember having in my collection. That's why I love picking these up, because it brings back nostalgic memories of books that I used to have and wish I'd never sold, but we all do it as collectors. Buying and selling is a hazard, if you like, of the collecting business, if you can call it a business. Highways in Hiding by George O. Smith. That's pocketbooks, is it? Oh no, so it's another Lancer. Lancer did quite a lot of science fiction, and I would imagine this is a 67 first printing. So yeah, nice shape as well. So yeah, another one I'm pleased with. And then this is a collection of stories from A. Van Vogt, who was very prolific during the 50s, 60s, 70s. You'll find a lot of his books in vintage shops. That's a New English Library edition. I would imagine it's early 70s. Let's have a look. Well, new editions. It's a second printing by the look at it from 1975. And then there were a couple of other books that I'll show you quickly that I picked up from. That was the last of the bunch, as I thought, from the charity shop, but there's more to come. Now, I picked these up from other charity shops that I toured that day, and this one came as a surprise to me. Silver Heart by Michael Moorcock and Storm Constantine. I'm a big Moorcock fan. I know most of his stuff. I thought I did, but I have not heard of this one. The fact that it's co-written, I don't know what Moorcock's involvement was, but his name's on it, so it was of great interest to me, and it was only 50p, which cheered me up somewhat. It's a newer publication. That one's from, it looks like first edition paperback from 2000. So I was delighted with that one. And then that is I've got the first two Rama books. That's the third one, Garden of Rama. Now, although Arthur Clarke's name's on there, I think it was this Gentry Lee fella that he was some sort of NASA bod. I think he even wrote most of it. I don't know if Arthur Clarke had any input at all, other than he wrote the original Rendezvous with Rama. But that was another nice pickup. I've just got the fourth in the series to get now. That's there. So that's a more recent printing, 1994. So yeah, pleased to get that one. Just need Rama Revealed now, I think, is the fourth book, and that was written by Arthur Clarke, as I recall. And then last but not least, that was only 50p again, this Rama book. And then last but not least, I picked this up. I don't know whether it's, I know they brought Independence Day, obviously a film from 20 odd years ago now. I know they did a book tie-in with that. I don't know if this is a tie-in with some television series that they've done, but I thought for 50p I would pick it up and have a look at it. In fact, they show the other two books. I don't know if you can see them very well, but there's I think that was a tie-in with the film, and then there was a second book, which was Resurgence. This one's Crucible. Yeah, so again, 50p, lovely condition. Couldn't really turn it down. Right, so there you have it, folks. There's my latest little batch of science fiction. As I said, next video won't be too long. In a day or two, I'll be showing you what I got for my 74th. Quite interesting stuff, actually. And yeah, anyway, until then, all stay safe and keep subscribing. And thank you for your support, and I will see you very shortly. Bye bye now.